Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you all out there? Good morning. I'm going to say it again just to make sure I hear all of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
There you are. I am Emily Bogus. I'm a member of the lead ministry team. My pronouns are she, her, and for all of us who are needing any visual assistance this morning, I am a tallish woman with short hair, wearing pink glasses and a green sweater. It's a little warmer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was fall, but it seems like, a little bit of summer returned to us. Welcome to Beacon, everyone. We are located on the ancestral and continued lands of the Lenni Lenape in Summit, New Jersey. And I want to tell you that I'm so excited to hear stories from the folks, Beacon, representatives of Beacon, who experienced a sweat ritual yesterday at the invitation of the Ramapo-Munsee Nation. So glad that we are developing this relationship with them. Today, in this service, we are honoring All Souls Day, which is typically marked on November 1st. 7 years ago, I had a great opportunity, along with a handful of other folks, to honor All Souls Day in Transylvania. I actually got to be there on Halloween, not as exciting as you would think. The All Souls Day is really their ritual. And in fact, it's a lot like Thanksgiving for us. Family members and communities come together. Everyone comes to their hometown, their home village, their home city. They celebrate meals and they remember their ancestors. I expected it to be somber, but instead it was celebratory. People would buy chrysanthemums, big pots of chrysanthemums, and they would plant them all around the cemetery where their ancestors were buried. And then at night, as we drove from village to village, we would see on the skyline, there in the hills, all of these tiny candles that were around each grave. It was a beautiful occasion and one that we are bringing into this service today. Today, we are honoring those beloved who have been a part of our lives. We are taking sacred time away from time, to appreciate how, just in simply living their lives, they taught us how to live. So in this season, as the leaves turn beautiful, brilliant colors, we are also today going to make intentions for our own lives. Did you hear that? We're going to make some intentions for our own lives. In the days that we have left, how might we live so that our true colors fill the world with beauty, compassion, and justice? I hope that some of you brought images of your ancestors or mentors who guided you, because later in the service, we will invite you forward to place those on our altar. If you are watching online, you may want to get a photo of or something that reminds you of your ancestors or mentors or beloveds to have with you. So welcome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Beacon.
Good morning. My name is Misa Iwama, and I'm so happy to be here with Vicki Carter. We're going to start this morning with hymn 1029. It's a new tune, so we'll first just learn it quickly. I'm going to sing 2 measures and then invite you to sing it back. It starts like this. Love knocks and waits for us to hear. You want to try that? Love knocks and waits for us to hear. The next one is to open and invite. Here we go. To open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear. Love longs to quiet every fear. And the end. And seeks to set things right. And seeks to set things right. I invite you to rise in any way possible and join as we sing this great lyric. Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn, embracing
Good morning. I'm Missy Rogers, pronouns she and her. I am a white woman in a black and tan sweater, and I'm filling in for Rosemary Wright, who was scheduled to be here as your worship associate but is not feeling well. So we send her warm thoughts and quick healing. As we light our chalice, may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
Our mission at Beacon calls us to heal the world. No small feat. Heal the whole world? How are we going to do that? UA President, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, centers communal care as one of the pillars of her presidency, one of the ways that we might heal the world. She calls it our living promise to, quote, build beloved communities that have the capacity to hold us in our living. Healing the world holds us in our living. Communal care was, in fact, an idea born of activists, she says, that centers the practices of justice. It counters those fixed ideas that justice work only happens on the streets or in the courts. In fact, the seeds of justice, we find, take place in human relationships when we feel seen and heard, and when we are called to see and hear someone we have called the other in our minds. It's taken me a long time to realize that both our community groups, those groups of 6 to 8 who gather twice a month to listen to one another and to be with one another, and our chaplain ministry are, in fact, justice work, in that they practice this vision of communal care. We currently have 9 adult chaplains and 5 youth chaplains, all trained volunteers. Our chaplains understand inherently that all of us need a community that cares. We understand that we have been taught to go it alone, or that we have been taught that at all times we must have it together, and that this is an illusion. In fact, I would tell you that we take this to heart, that one of our chaplains right now has a chaplain, because all of us are going to need care. Today, our chaplains and community groups are called to accompany one another, and one of the promises that we make is to not fix or advise. How many of you have talked to someone needing them to listen to you when in fact they tried to fix you, right? It wasn't really helpful. But instead, our chaplains, our community groups are called to really show up for one another and then to slow down. They are called to be present and then to listen deeply. Listen deeply. And this is not the expertise that we have. It is instead a practice, something that we practice. And the practice helps us lean into our gifts of generosity to shift away from the meanness of scarcity and to be transformed by the abundance of love. Reverend Dr. Betancourt says that in doing so, we become good ancestors, the good ancestors who will sustain who we are becoming and who is becoming in our children and grandchildren. This is our mission, to heal the world. Let us begin with ourselves. Our offering for the work of this mission to heal the world will now be given and gratefully received.
Good morning. I'd like to offer a song in Hebrew. Words are Hine matov umanayim shevet ahim gam yahad. Roughly translated as how good it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. If you know it, please join me. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matov shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matov shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matov shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matov shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Hine matovu manayim shevet ahim gam yad. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. I don't want to rush into anything here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Maureen Irwin, she, her, 5'3". This pulpit's too tall for 5'3". Reddish, brownish, graying hair, and I'm delighted to be here with some of my colleagues and friends from First U of Plainfield. There's some new ones that are here today. Thank you for your warm welcome. Let me get my pages in order first. Help. I loved hearing about Beacon's annual celebration of All Souls Day, honoring our ancestors. My husband is Jewish, and in our house, we light a candle on the anniversary of a loved one's yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death. And we pause and remember that person and what they meant to us in our lives. I was in my mid-30s when I attended an elderly aunt's funeral, and I heard a eulogy that stuck with me. After a very brief talk about my aunt, the clergy asked us to think about how we wanted to live our lives, how we want our loved ones to remember us when we die, writing our own eulogy. It was the first time I thought deeply about my mortality. I drove 5 hours home and I got on with my life. I had just completed my MBA. I was continually getting promotions in my career. I was a new mother, and I had a mortgage to pay. Mortality had to wait. I was at the beginning of something here, folks. Because of my ancestry, my heritage, I had things to achieve. I had to differentiate myself from my ancestry. That's a topic for another day, or my therapist. This morning, we're talking about the earth seasons as a life metaphor. And so you can forgive me, this was the spring, summer of my life. Spring and summer being green, and we call young people green. They're inexperienced and lacking wisdom. Fall is when the true colors come. The colors become apparent because of the lack of chlorophyll and photosynthesis. And for many of us, certainly for me, the fall of my life is when my true colors emerged. And perhaps my energy began to fade. Thoughts of my mortality also began to emerge, and thoughts about how I was living and how my eulogy would read. There's a book entitled, I'm Old Enough to Die, and I am. I get it. It took time. I went full throttle as a mom in my career, my UU church, nonprofit boards, and just about everything I did. Of course, I have some regrets about those years, but I take comfort in Parker Palmer's words where he says, quote, "We need to have compassion for our tendency to begin 20 years too late." What a long time it can take to become the person one has always been. A long time to become the person one has always been. I went full throttle until I couldn't anymore. A poem from T.S. Eliot. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. In his book, Transitions, William Bridges speaks of a time when the achievement phase of our lives brings less meaning, and as we age, we tend to become more spiritual and find meaning in our lives. He says that there are 3 phases of a transition. First, there is the ending. Second, there's a period of emptiness, of nothingness, confusion perhaps, but definitely a void. And lastly, there is a beginning. Each phase is important. If we don't have a proper ending, we'll carry that baggage around with us through all of our new beginnings. And he points out that if we become aware of the rhythms of Earth's life cycles and accept these cycles, especially fall to winter, we're more apt to gently transition to each stage of our life. The painting behind me here on our altar depicts the cycles of the Earth year. The painting ends here at the bottom with the acorns and the colored leaves, and I can't resist. I'll never see them the same way as Emily's perspective brought us a couple weeks ago. But the leaves and the acorns disintegrate. They become fodder and nutrients during the winter for the growth in the spring. This painting doesn't depict this, perhaps for a good reason. It's cold. The days become shorter, darker, and the landscape is bare. That is a necessary time for the earth. Winter can seem long and painful externally in the world and internally as we go indoors and perhaps into ourselves. The poet David White describes this wintertime as if we're in a state of deep rest, a paradoxical time when we may seem to have a loss of a relationship with our daily activities as we knew them, while simultaneously having a sense of a pull to the future. We seem to go through a shedding of a relationship, an old way of being, of letting go of the dreams and the ideas we had of a particular future. White says that when you reach this threshold, you will need to refresh and relearn where you are. You need to get through the layers of constellations, and while getting ready for each day, each next day, somehow you will similarly begin to see how to get to the next level of your humanity. A sense of yourself and a sense of your future. At 20, 50, 65, 75, you can reach different degrees of freedom of the next stage, a freedom for the next place of your life. I remember when I got to that threshold. It was on a Friday night after a week of travel. I caught a PBS interview with Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot about her latest book, the third chapter, Passion, Risk, and Adventure in the 25 years after 50. I was already 5 years too late, and I wasn't particularly feeling passion, risk, and adventure. I was sunk deep into my chair from another week of travel. I was physically, emotionally, and spiritually depleted. From an outsider's point of view, I probably was at the height of my career. But my soul was dead. I had somehow been aware of this in the back of my mind, but now it was front and center. And I wanted to keep it here. I didn't want to repeat this again. Because I'd been to this place before. I'd changed jobs, changed my hours, took courses on spirituality, religion, nonprofit management, meditated, and practiced yoga. I had it covered and I tweaked at all the edges. But this time it felt different. This time I had hit the wall. What Lawrence Lightfoot offered me in her book was the prospect of transformation, of doing something totally different, the prospect of a new beginning. I didn't have a role model for that. No one in my family had ever done anything like that. My grandparents and my parents lived through the Depression, and I was raised in the aftermath of that. Lightfoot talked about the time frame of 50 to 75 as a span that could be the most transformative and generative time of our lives. To reiterate David White, to get to the next level of your humanity, and I needed another level of humanity. But I had to have an ending first. Now I know. I entered a winter time, a period of deep quiet, darkness, and inner reflection. I didn't know that I needed to shed portions of my life, that I needed to shed some relationships, that I needed to shed a way of being. I didn't know that that was what I was doing. It seemed like nothing was happening. I seemed to be floating. I didn't know that I was going through the second stage of transition, the void. I was unconsciously preparing to end one phase of my life and begin another. I took my meditation practice to a new level, added more types of yoga. I began reading the Yoga Sutras, which led me to Buddhism. I began the study of death and dying, and I trained to become a hospice volunteer. I loved sitting at the bedside, listening to people at the end of life. I listened to their fears, their regrets, their lives. I learned from them. And once in a while, I seemed to become one with them. It was 5 more years before I made any change that was visible to the eye. And then it seemed to happen very quickly. I never had a calling. It was more like a hand on my back, a shove, really. I began a year-long course of study at the Zen Center for Contemplative Care. And halfway through the course, I felt a deep shift, like my anchor went down further. One night, I heard a clear voice in the middle of the night, and it said, "Maureen, do it now." I didn't go back to sleep. Did I really hear that? The very next day, I went to work and I resigned my 40-year career. A couple months after, I started a 4-year chaplaincy program and I enrolled as a formal student at the Zen Center. Both of these programs took me even deeper into my spirituality and knowing myself so that I could listen to other people clearly and meet them where they are without perspective or emotion. I was 60 years old. I never felt more awkward. But I was firm, I was steadfast, and my head was clear. I didn't think of another option. Parker Palmer says that vocation does not come from a voice out there calling me to be something I'm not. It comes from a voice in here calling me to the person I was born to be. I felt like I had returned to the person I was born to be. Today we have a mini wall panel on the altar to place our intentions and our remembrances. It reminds me of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, a sacred place to leave a prayer or intentions for living. As fall marches towards winter, what would you like to shed? What would help you to hear that voice inside? Within your family, what intention would you like to envision as your ancestral legacy? What would give you degrees of freedom for the next phase of your life? Palmer says this about intentions. Every day I am making decisions about what to bring forth from within myself to put into the world. Nothing is as untrue as my intention to live deliberately. May we all live with deliberate intention as if the world depends upon it. Indeed it does. Blessed be. Amen.
Good morning. Let's do this. My name is Chris Baglieri, formerly a member of First Unitarian, and I'm delighted to see old friends. That's the bonus of coming here today. I am a average-sized, average height, middle-aged 55-year-old with graying hair wearing a maroon hoodie, and nothing adds humility and perspective to life like making that sort of visual assistance announcement.
So true.
It is a fine place to start. I'm grateful today for the invitation from my dear friend Maureen to join those who are speaking here. I've been asked to speak to midpoints and to share some of my viewpoint on how someone like myself, in what might generously be called midlife, might see this time of transition that we're focused on, of autumn. Uncharacteristically for me, I'm going to start with a biblical quote, and not the cliche that you might think of, a time for every season and every purpose under heaven. No, I went right past that one. Instead, I'm going to start my focus at Corinthians chapter 11. Equally familiar, but perhaps different for some of you. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. That quotation very much sums up my current midpoint in life. suspended somewhere between the legacy which I've inherited from my parents and the one that I hope to leave to my child. Those of you who know me know that I have a 21-year-old. You might be surprised because you probably remember him at 2. Not as surprised as I am to be the parent of a 21-year-old currently in college and doing a fine job of puzzling out how to live his life, except that he's still very much dependent on us as his parents in almost every sense. Financially, for those of you who get college bills, you know what I mean. Emotionally, as anyone who's the parent of a high school student or a college-aged adult can tell, but which the children flatly deny, that they are emotionally dependent on us. And also, from a sheerly practical sense, he does his own laundry, he feeds himself, but he would never dream of going to buy a pair of winter boots without consulting his parents for some reason. At the same time, my wife and I have 3 living parents, all of whom are in their mid to late 80s, 2 of whom are in active treatment for cancer, not for the first time, and one of whom is no longer able to drive or walk particularly well or take her medication as prescribed. So in this midpoint, I find myself in a sort of a dynamic tension in which life is turning upside down. The people who we've depended on, our parents, all our lives, are now shifting to a point of dependence on us. And simultaneously, at the same time, in the same space, the child who was dependent on us is declaring independence. And it's this flipping of the lens that I find really holds me in tension, in a state of middleness. I'm a member of what the media has started to call the sandwich generation, in that between place. And there's a poetic irony to that, where you're releasing one role, but taking it on in a different place, in a different direction. And as my world slowly turns upside down, I am guessing that this is a familiar place for many of you as well. But at the same time, I bring to this point of my life what might be a useful lens, based in part on that biblical quote that I began with, relating to when I was a child. In my 20s and 30s, I thought, an independent adult, living on my own, beginning my careers actually, as well as in a stable relationship which would lead to my current marriage and all of the obligations that I've mentioned previously. But looking back at that time, through the lens of middle age, I now realize that I was actually totally overwhelmed most of the time. I was a child, basically, who spoke as a child and thought as a child, but stepping into responsibilities for which I could only hope that I was prepared, but which I had no real life experience for. At the time, perhaps blessedly, I approached it with a sense of sheer blind optimism. Mostly it worked out, but often it didn't. And some of the most spectacular failures of my life took place during this time. I can only look back, though, with a sense of gratitude that they weren't worse than they were. And perhaps the certainty of knowledge that, in the words of the Rolling Stones, I may not have gotten what I wanted, but I almost certainly got what I needed. And if nothing else, I got the knowledge and the wisdom to do better, to fail well, is the phrase that I think of. Now, by contrast, at this transitional time of my life, when the demands are doubled, my professional responsibilities are senior staff. In fact, the word senior haunts me. I am senior staff. I am the senior instructor at my dojo. I'm senior this and senior that, and over again, people look to me and think, what are we going to do? To which my answer is, what we've always done, but better. So in the midst of a life that's more demanding than ever before, what I actually feel now is less overwhelmed. While life continues to be crazy, don't get me wrong, I find that it's an insanity that I am, in fact, mostly equipped to deal with. I make mistakes, I lose focus, I fail at things that I think I should succeed at, and yet it's not the same as it was in my 20s and 30s, because I've put away some childish things, one of which is the need to criticize myself for failure. I've let it go. As an adult, I bring to my day-to-day experience the legacy that my parents have taught me, as well as all of the hard lessons that I've learned with and from my own child. I approach problems knowing exactly what skills I actually have, what supports that I'll need, with a clear sense of what I want in life. In short, at this point, I know who I am in a way I didn't before. And that lends a clarity to everything that makes even disasters just a part of moving forward. The interesting thing about this middleness, this tension, is that as I let my childhood dreams go, and as I drove here this morning, I was reminded that the New York City Marathon is kicking off this morning. That is a goal that I've let go. No, I'm not kidding. I had a bib, I had a race number to be on that bridge at 9 o'clock in the morning on the day of Hurricane Sandy. So sometimes when we let things go, we really let them go. And that's not the only dream. I will not be a major league ball player. I've let it go. But in its place, I've gathered in the things that I cherish. I am a teacher. I am a leader, a father, a brother, a son, a child. These are all the things, the dynamic tension that defines who I am and what's most important, because those are the things that I've learned to center my life on. So that failure is simply a step towards becoming. That is the joy of middleness, the joy of autumn, and the wonderful place to be that says, I can forgive my past, still be optimistic about my future, but most importantly, be present here, now, for the things that matter most to me. And that, more than anything else, this autumn is what I wish for you all. Thank you.
Our reading today is titled In Autumn by Kim Walczewski. Picture a parasail, that huge parachute overhead filled with air, the way it jerks open urgently as it's filled with wind, and so sudden as if there is no runway at all. Now picture you strapped to this large canopy, strapped into some seat by some belts, holding on, maybe, letting go, maybe. You are rising in the air, bound to the boat pulling you, grounding you, and bound to the parachute pulling you, raising you higher. This is how I feel in autumn. This is how I feel as the earth edges from summer into fall and fall into brisk winter. This is how I feel when we talk about our dead, of the ones we've lost, of the ones we're losing. There is something pulling me, pulling you, pulling us all forward, fast and firm. There is something pulling us farther from yesterday and so further from them, the dead, our dead, the sweet summers of before. And there is nothing to do but hold on. And isn't that the irony? That what we'd like to clutch and feel, what we'd like to hold for safety, for our heart's salvation, is exactly what we must let go? Oh, beloved, oh, love, oh, life as we had known. We are being pulled forward, fast and firm. But this is life. This life is not to be dragged through, and their life, even its absence, its waning, their legacy, was never meant to ruin our lives. And so we learn to hold on to what we can. We learn to let go of what we must. We learn that with time and memory, with bits and bundles of joy, with tears, whose wells never run dry. We are somehow lifted into another world, which is also this one, which is also one we've never known, which is also one we'd never choose, which is also the one we must. Where the gust of their spirit and the spirit of life lift us larger than the force of time. You are strapped to the large canopy that is stitched by life and loss and life again. You are strapped into some seat by some belts, cradled by and clutched to those who love you. Letting go into the love that still grows. You are rising in the air, bound to the boat pulling you, grounding you, bound to the parachute pulling you, raising you high. O beloved, O love, O life as we had known, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Missy. Thank you, Chris. We're now going to prepare ourselves. It's listed in your order of service as a meditation, but we're really preparing ourselves to create an altar for our ancestors and for our own lives, lives of intention. So we begin this preparation with a moment of gratitude. And I'm going to invite Jeannie Siegel forward, who is one of our chaplains. And I'm going to invite Maureen and Missy forward. And they're going to begin as we prepare to light candles. Jeannie, I'm throwing you into this. Jeannie, would you light our memorial candle this day? It's right here. Jeannie is lighting the memorial candle for Larry Franz. We give thanks for his life. He is the husband of Lorraine Franz. They were married for 47 years. Father to Betsy and Dee, who passed away this week after suffering from long COVID, which he recovered from, and then got acute leukemia. We hold his family in our hearts. We also this day send our hearts to Ingrid Lois, a member of this community who is currently at Morristown Memorial dealing with cardiac issues. And I will reach out to her this afternoon and find out how we can be there for her and her family. And today we also hold the Israeli and Palestinian peoples in our hearts as we have done each day, each week since early October. We now understand that the hostages have spent a month under siege, and our hearts go out to them and their families, hoping they get home soon. Moving from these areas of care that need our attention, let us now turn to our own hearts. Maybe, if you will, put your hand on your heart or put your hands out as if you're holding something with care. I invite you to hold in your heart an ancestor, a mentor, a beloved whose mortal life has ended. Can you see them in your mind's eye? Hold their name on the tip of your tongue. And right alongside it, think of the word or the phrase that you would say embodies their life. Did they make you laugh? Were they kind? Did they see you? And as you hold them, these beloveds, hold yourself, for we too are becoming ancestors with each day. And so Missy and Maureen are lighting candles, not only for them, but for us. Now, think of your own life. What is one thing, maybe hold this hand out, what is one thing that you need to let go of? Hold that word, what that thing is that you need to let go of. Hold that one word in your mind's eye. And with the other hand, what is one intention that you make this day for how you will spend the rest of your days? So that at your memorial, when your loved ones gather to light candles for you, they will say, "He was kind. She was a voice for justice. They embodied love." What is the one word that you need to let go of to make room for that one intention that will be your life? Now is the time when you bring out that tiny bit of paper that you were given and that little pencil, and if you need one, our two ushers are here to offer you one. I want you to write down on that piece of paper. They're coming to you, Kathy. Don't worry. They're coming to you. I want you to write down on that piece of paper, and people online, just hold for a second. I want you to write down on that piece of paper that one word that you are letting go of and another word that is your word of intention. Did you hear that? You're the one word you're letting go of and your one word of intention. Write that down on that piece of paper. And for people online, you are going to write it into the chat when the ritual begins. Now, here is the most important instruction. In a second, I'm going to invite you forward to place your release and your intention into our wailing wall. As Maureen said, in Jerusalem, there is a wall where Jews for centuries have brought their prayers, and we too will bring our prayers. But in order to do so, you will have to fold up that tiny piece of paper so tight. And if you can't do so, don't worry, we can put them alongside. You'll also be invited to bring forward your picture of your ancestor. So take a moment to write it down. Vicky's gonna play some music for us. And you may come forward. If you can't get up or you need some assistance, we will come to you and make sure they get onto our altar.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Andre Bernard. My pronouns are he and him. About 10 days ago, Emily invited me to write my own obituary. It was a surprising invitation, to say the least. But as I went through it, it proved quite rewarding, and I would invite all of you to consider doing that at some point. It's an interesting challenge. So here we go. Andre Bernard has died peacefully in his home, surrounded by family and loved ones, and the garden and the forest, all of whom he so dearly loved. In his last few days, he repeated something that he had often said throughout his life. He was so very grateful for the many blessings he had received in this lifetime. Born in Cairo, Egypt in 1951, his family left Egypt in 1952, moving to Canada, and finally arriving in the United States in 1955 when Andre was 4 years old. His working life included a variety of jobs, including, among other things, a part-time taxi driver in New York City while attending college, a self-employed ceramic tile setter, and an operations manager for a distribution company. He served on several local boards and committees, including the Board of Trustees of Interweave and the Board of Beacon Unitarian. He served as an advisor for the Interfaith Bridge, the Soul Community, and most recently trained as a Beacon chaplain. As a political science and history major in college, Andre was keenly aware of the events that unfolded in the world. Given the strife and suffering in the world that seemed to be forever ongoing, his frustration and sadness and anger was offset by prayers and actions for peace, compassion, and the end of suffering. Andre was introduced to universal Sufism in the 1970s while a young man in his 20s. The practices and way of being that formed the core of the Sufi path would continue as a guiding force and guiding light throughout the rest of his life. Not a religion, the Sufi path sees the underlying unity, underlying energy, underlying love, which connects us all. Using the power of prayer and meditation, music and movement, the power of people coming together in a circle and simply holding hands, opening and connecting in their hearts. This journey of mind and heart, not always easy, but often miraculous, changed nearly every aspect of Andre's life. As a young man, he lived in 2 intentional different Sufi households in California. And following that, lived in a community in the remote mountains of New Mexico, where he met the love of his life, Asha. They would stay married for over 40 years, the remainder of their time on earth. Asha and Andre raised 2 beautiful and wonderful daughters, Ariel and Emily. Following 9/11, feeling the pain of religious and ethnic intolerance, Andre picked up his guitar and began to lead an ongoing circle of the Dances of Universal Peace. Being a shy introvert, leading groups and speaking in public were outside of Andre's comfort zones. Yet this circle, at times small and struggling, continued for more than 20 years and led to other opportunities for leading and teaching. These circles brought a wide range of people together, celebrating and connecting in a heart-centered space, creating a sangha of beloveds. To have fostered this was one of the great blessings of Andre's life. Andre loved nature, to spend time in natural settings, to witness the work of the miraculous in nature, to get his hands dirty in the garden. Asha would sometimes wonder what he was doing out there when no apparent work was getting done. Asha gave Andre a t-shirt as a gift late in his life. The t-shirt read, "I fix things." Andre loved the t-shirt. It was a reminder of what he saw as his dharma in both the earth and spiritual realms. It is said that walking the path of awakening is a lifelong endeavor. Even in the last years of his time on earth, Andre remained open to learning and growing. There is a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad that says, "Mutu kabla anta mutu," usually translated as "die before you die." This is one of the cornerstones of Sufism and of the spiritual path in general, to let die, to let go of old parts of oneself, creating space for new, more connected, or awakened parts of oneself. Andre was grateful for the wide range of teachers he encountered in his life, yogis and murshids, ministers and lay people. Teachers who came in so many forms as friends and mentors, and even included those who challenged him. Andre was attuned to something that one such teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist teacher, said regarding his own death, quote, "This body of mine will disintegrate, but my actions will continue me. If you think I am only this body, then you have not truly seen me. When you look at my friends, you see my continuation. When you see someone walking with mindfulness and compassion, you know he or she is my continuation. I don't see why we have to say, 'I will die,' because I can already see myself in you, in other people, and in future generations." And Rumi, the great Sufi poet, wrote something similar. "Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because for those who love with heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation." Thank you. Now I'm going to slip down and lead you in a song. So this song, written by John Ashton, is called "To Serve, Love, and Remember." Some of you may be familiar with Ram Dass, who had a guru in India named Neem Karoli Baba. When Ram Dass was leaving India to come back to the United States, he said to his guru, "Well, what should I do? How can I be without you?" And Neem Karoli Baba was said to have said to him, "Love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God." So this song is pretty simple. The refrain is to love, serve, and remember. So I invite you to sing along in the refrain. Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come? To love, serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember. Once more. To love, serve, and remember. Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come? To love, serve, and remember. 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 Why have you come to earth? why have you taken birth? Why have you come to love, serve, and remember? To love, serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember. Once more. To love, serve, and remember. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andre. That was so beautiful. Our closing group song is going to be We Are, and that's number 1051 in the hymnal. So, two notes about this piece. One thing, there's a chorus line, and, well, not a chorus line, but there's a line that functions as a chorus, and that is, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. That comes in at the beginning twice, and it comes in at the end 4 times. So just have that in mind. The other thing to know about this is that every time you see two dots and a line, it means we're going to repeat. So that shows the first page, there's a repeat on that first sentence. But if you turn to the 3rd page, when it says, we are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages, that's about 3/4 of the way down the page. You see those 2 dots and a line. And that means go backwards. And we're going to go backwards to the first page, We Are Our Grandmother's Prayers. This is not the easiest song to follow on the format, but I know you can do it. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see me flipping pages because I'm using an iPad. But maybe we'll be able to see some flipping pages, so we'll know that's when we turn back. All right, I invite you to rise in any way possible and join in singing. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we done.
Woo! I'm going to invite you to stay standing or to stay standing in spirit. I want to thank Misa and Vicky for giving us that closing song, which is a metaphor for life, which is we're going to sing until we get lost, and then we're going to find our way together. Thank you so much. And I want to plant this seed before we join hands with one another for our benediction. And that is, as we prepared for this service, Maureen and I wanted to plant the seed that aging is hard and that we need one another. And so often we don't have these conversations. And so Maureen and I have started to envision a retreat that would happen in the winter, in a time in which seeds really find their earth. And maybe we could have conversations about what it means to age and live with beauty into beginnings. So I plant that seed for you all and see what happens. If you'd like to learn more, talk to Maureen. And now I invite you to take hands with one another. Andre, would you hold that chalice right there? Let us go out into the world and love not with our eyes, but with our hearts and souls. Let it be so. Ashe. Amen.
Amen.
Leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Oh, bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place of grace, place of losing and finding our way upon the winding road. Meeting and parting, stumbling and starting over. Leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome in. Come in and do not leave your cares at the door.